I was face down in my own yard, wrists zip-tied behind my back, police lights cutting the dark into hard blue slices while my 10-year-old watched from the window clutching a stuffed bunny and praying I'd stand up. That was the moment I learned what a community looks like when someone else decides who belongs. Beside the officers pointing at me like I'd wandered into a museum, dressed wrong. And when she told them I didn't live here, the words landed like a verdict. My daughter whispered through the glass, "Daddy, please get up." And that hurt more than the cop's knee pressing into my spine. 6 months earlier, none of this had been imaginable. My name's Daniel Carter. I run a small carpentry shop out of the garage now, and my daughter Chloe, she's 10. She still sleeps with the rabbit her mom gave her is the reason I breathe steady some days and the reason I nearly lose it on others. Emily died 2 years ago, 9 months from diagnosis to silence, and after that the house got quieter, one room at a time. The land was the only loud thing left. 23 acres my grandfather brought home after coming back from Vietnam, the kind of land you don't sell because it's more than dirt, it's roots. We kept our heads down while men with trucks and surveys rolled in paved things, planted matching trees, and built a neighborhood like a catalog spread. They circled our farmhouse like a landscaped moat, and at first the looks were just curious, then cold, then openly hostile. My fence was rustic charm in one person's sentence and a violation in the next. My truck, an honest, mud-spattered old workhorse, was suddenly an eyesore. An HOA formed as HOAs do, and with them came Victoria, elevated to president before half the paint had dried. At first it was stupid little things. A bright orange sticker plastered on my windshield that read "Violation, anonymous notes" taped to my door, demanding I remove the wildflowers Chloe had planted for her mom, trash dumped at our gate like an insult. Someone tagged me occupant on the neighborhood page, and the comments turned poisonous. Fast occupant evict lower property values, words that make strangers into enemies. You shrug off a sticker. You don't shrug off your child being called a squatter at the playground. You get used to petty attacks until they go after your kid. One afternoon at the playground, a board member leaned over the swing set and told Chloe she didn't belong here, that she should go home because her family wasn't part of the community. I watched her shrink into herself like a bird startled into silence. That week, a blocked caller left a voicemail from Child Protective Services telling me there'd been a report about unsafe living conditions, anonymous, clipped, and terrifying. Somebody was trying to weaponize the system meant to protect kids. So I did what boring, stubborn people do. I started keeping records. Deeds, stamps, surveys, county filings, every paper my grandfather ever signed. It wasn't dramatic, it was methodical. Late one night, hunched over parcel maps with a coffee gone cold, I saw the line move a few feet here, a sliver there, and realized it wasn't just cruelty. It was theft on paper. Their walking path, their manicured strip, the land beneath the playground, a quiet inch of it had been drawn over my boundary in newer maps. That's the quiet legal cruelty of small power people. They assume ignorance equals permission. I went to the county recorder's office, and a clerk slid a folder across the table with a stamp that made me sit up straight. Defaulted developer. The developer who built the subdivision had failed on their financing. A lien sat against the land. The county told me plainly that lien could be purchased, and the holder of that debt inherits the developer's interest. In plain speak, buy the lien, and you buy the paperwork that makes the HOA's common land what it is. I sat there with that file and the word debt like a live coal in my palm. Buying that lien would mean buying the paperwork that made their playground and paths theirs or mine. It meant quiet legal leverage in a fight that had been mostly insults and anonymous notes. I thought about Chloe asking if we'd done something wrong, and about Emily's little scrawl in a note she left me: "Protect our daughter." I wired the money I'd hoarded for college and repairs, every emergency dollar I could scrape together, and bought the assignment. It hurt. It terrified me. But losing my daughter's safety would have destroyed me far worse. When the transfer went through, the change felt less like a parade and more like an ordinary morning shifting under your feet. A county clerk stamped her copy and handed me the file. I held it to my chest like a baby, not because I'd gotten revenge, but because I'd gotten a legal anchor. I could feel the weight of it, the ability to say yes or no to a group that had shown they preferred power to neighborliness. Victoria reacted the way fear-trained people do, loudly. She called an emergency HOA meeting, sent urgent emails, live-streamed her version of doom, and rallied neighbors to vote a special assessment to protect amenities. She painted me as a villain, an outside force trying to seize homes. People got scared. Money talks and fear moves hands quicker than thought. Then the twist nobody expected: leaked documents. Someone somewhere uploaded bank statements and invoices, payments to companies tied to Victoria maintenance fees that lined private pockets, a paper trail of conflicts of interest. The room that had applauded her suddenly smelled betrayal. People who had been willing to sell their own calm for promises found their voices small and their trust broken. The thing that sealed it happened at a public auction to finalize the lien transfer. Picture the courthouse limestone steps warm with sun cameras, neighbors split down the middle, Victoria striding in like the heroine of her own film. She placed a dramatic bid with a thick folder, but when bylaws and proof of funds were presented, gaps appeared. "I bid the lien credit lawfully allowed," not as theatrics but as procedure, and the auctioneer accepted. The gavel cracked like thunder. I walked out, holding legal right in my hands. When I told the room I now owned the HOA-controlled land, every road, every playground, every strip they'd been standing on while calling me a trespasser, it landed like a mirror held up too close. For once, the woman who'd called police and smeared a family with whispers had no podium to command. Her composure cracked. People who'd shouted for assessments found their voices oddly small. Cameras went still. It wasn't violence, it was the law and a folder of truth, and truth is louder than bravado when it's stamped and authenticated. I didn't dance on anyone's pride. I filed the paperwork, went back to the county, and within a day, the HOA board dissolved. No parades, no cameos, just neighbors slowly peeking out of doors, reconciling angry posts with the fact that maybe they'd been lied to. What surprised me more than the legal win were the apologies that followed, awkward at first, then honest. A man I'd barely spoken to walked up my driveway, eyes down, and said, "I'm sorry." He looked relieved, like he'd been carrying guilt he could finally put down. We rewired the community not by decree but by conversation. I organized a meeting in the park, no podium, just folding chairs. And we agreed on one simple principle: before you call the clipboard, talk to the person beside you. No mandatory dues, no punitive fines, no one policing mailbox colors like a petty monarch. We started a voluntary neighborhood fund, and in Emily's name, a scholarship for local kids studying nursing and teaching grief turned into something that helps other people. The satisfying domestic justice was small and perfect neighbors bringing cookies, a kid planting a seed next to Chloe's wildflowers, a man offering a quiet apology. We planted a bigger garden in front of the playground so Chloe could see her mom's flowers every day. Little things: kids laughing without checking over their shoulders, parents speaking without measuring their words. That was the victory I wanted, not to humiliate someone, but to take away the power that made them cruel. There's a lesson that snuck up on me in the dust and the paperwork and the late-night printing: power without accountability eats the people around it, and bullies always underestimate facts. Keep your records. Keep your deeds. Keep your promises. When systems meant to protect are turned into weapons, fight with the thing. Bullies forget they're allergic to documents, patience, and quiet persistence. I won legally, and more importantly, I got back something quieter: peace. Chloe sleeps without checking windows. She runs across the yard because it's hers, and the wildflowers keep blooming like a stubborn flag. We started a scholarship with money that had been for our future, and had already helped kids sign up for classes. We built a small neighborhood where people talk before they call the clipboard. So here's the question I want you to wrestle with when someone in your neighborhood wields power and people follow out of fear. What would you do? Stand up and speak, or look down and hope it stops? Tell me your story in the comments. Tell me if you've lived through something like this, and if you want the next chapter, the one about a fence and an old shed that dug up a different kind of secret, hit subscribe.